Before we talk about some of the things that are in the book, I do want to ask you about some of the latest information that we're now getting. There's a growing number of Democrats who are asking that the interpreter during the Trump-Putin meeting, her name is Marina Gross, they are demanding that she be hauled before a congressional committee to reveal what was discussed and what she heard during this one-on-one meeting between two world leaders. And they're also demanding that she turn over to Congress any notes that she took during the Monday 2-hour meeting in Helsinki, again, between Trump and Putin. Your thoughts?
Yes. Well, first of all, the Democrats do not control either house of Congress, so their request is a legal nullity. It is nothing more than a request that does not have the force of law. She does not have to respond. The president does not have to respond. No one has to respond. That said, one thing is also clear, that if the president needed to, he could invoke executive privilege, let's say, if the Democrats controlled one or both houses of Congress. But an interpreter is never going to be called to testify. I can assure you that the Democrats ultimately know they're never going to get her, and so this is just a game, because if they thought they would get her, it is quite conceivable that Mr. Schumer, no matter how obnoxious he is from time to time, would realize that a future Democratic president would not want this to happen, and so it wouldn't happen. But this is grandstanding, a la the Democrats. This is what they do. They've become a very, very bad joke.
Well, the liberal media and Democrats, there was hair on fire hysteria after the Putin Trump meeting and the news conference, accusing Trump of being soft on Russia and in Putin's pocket. Frankly, Joe, that is belied by the facts. This president increased sanctions against Russia fivefold, went after their energy sector, the defense industry, Putin's inner circle, and that most recent set of sanctions 3 months ago in April that the president signed. He issued a statement saying this is in direct punishment for Russia's meddling in the election. As I see it, Trump has taken more punitive action against Russia in 18 months than Obama did in 8 years. What do you think?
So I don't think there's any doubt that the president's conduct, whether it's giving defensive missile systems to Eastern European countries, which are now part of the Western Bloc, whether it's giving arms to Ukraine, whatever it may be, the sanctions, expelling 62 Russian quote-unquote diplomats who were intelligence people as a result of the poisoning of the former Russian spy in London. The president has been fantastic. His messaging has been a little off from time to time, but in terms of the real activities to punish the Russians, it is absolutely true that compared to the abysmal record of President Obama, he has been a superb defender of American interests. And I must say, I over the last few days, I've always, it's been fairly obvious that John Brennan, the former CIA director under Obama, is a very sick man, a man so partisan, so viciously corrupted by his biases that he looks like a madman when he's on television. His fiery face, he can barely stay within his skin. But the person who disappointed me even more the other day by suggesting that the Russians might have something on the president was Leon Panetta. There's a guy who, while Secretary of Defense during Benghazi, did absolutely nothing to save an American ambassador and 3 other brave Americans. Leon Panetta should be ashamed of himself. And I can't imagine what possessed him to say something as stupid and as uninformed as he did about the current president of the United States. But this is where the Democrats are. They're cowardly. Panetta, by the way, is one of those guys who, for all of his experience as a member of Congress, Secretary of Defense, CIA director, he is really a weak person. It's fascinating how he kowtowed to Hillary Clinton. Quite remarkable.
A couple of hours after John Brennan, former CIA director, a Hillary Clinton lackey, and a hyper-partisan, tweeted out that the president committed treason, I tweeted a response, and my response was every time that John Brennan opens his mouth or tweets something, he removes all doubt about his ignorance. And the reason I said that is because the treason laws, as you well know, are very specific in the United States, not only in Article 3 of the Constitution, but under the statute of treason. You have to be at war with another country for treason to apply, and the most obvious example was Ethel and Julius Rosenberg in the 1940s and 50s. They were never charged with treason. Even though they gave nuclear secrets to the Soviets, they were charged and convicted and put to death for espionage. But Brennan and all the others who hauled off and said this is treason are absolutely ignorant people.
They are, and the other thing that's very clear about Brennan when you watch him, it's very Shakespearean in the sense that he does protest too much, because he is well aware of the central role that he played in creating the hoax about Russian collusion, in allowing the improper searching of FISA information by the NSA. He is at the core of spreading the false dossier around the government in an effort to get it published. He is at the core of the unmasking process with Susan Rice and others. He's at the core of the leaking of all of that information in violation of federal law to the American media. John Brennan is among that whole list. Clapper is, of course, another one, but he's so stupid and inarticulate that he probably has a defense of being just not quite dumb enough to know how to properly lie. But Brennan is at the center of the entire conspiracy against Trump. And the thing about it that makes him so obviously a part of the conspiracy is the vitriol that he has cloaked himself in to go after a sitting president, and the damage that he has done to the CIA personnel who work out there today. I speak to people at the agency all the time.
Right.
They are embarrassed by John Brennan. They are mortally, mortally embarrassed by him.
Well, he's a mean and malevolent person, and don't just take my word for it. That's what Samantha Power, the Obama United Nations ambassador, said rather cryptically and I'll quote her, "Not a good idea to piss off John Brennan." That's in my book. And in fact, as you know, because you've read much of the book, Joe, my book entitled The Russia Hoax, Chapter 6, the title of that chapter is The Fabricated Dossier Used Against Trump, and I open it with salvos against John Brennan as the instigator of the dirty dossier. And in fact, I quote a House Intelligence senior aide, House Intelligence Committee senior aide, who said, quote, "John Brennan did more than anyone to promulgate the dirty dossier. He politicized and effectively weaponized what was false intelligence against Trump." And then I lay out all the facts and the evidence that prove it, Joe.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that particular chapter is one of the most sterling parts of the book, and I heartily commend it to people who want to understand how an outgoing administration during a transition period between an election and an inauguration could engage in such perfidy during that time in an effort to undermine a president duly elected by the people of the United States. I think the American people have figured out without any question that the Russian collusion thing is idiotic and a hoax, except the most partisan of Democrats who will believe anything because they hate the president.
Right.
But what people are not aware of is how criminal, and I underscore criminal, the activity was that led to the attempt to frame Donald Trump. They will not succeed. The president will not be framed, but they have done a terrible thing to the American people and to a new president. They've stolen 18 months of his presidency to deal with this nonsense. And at the core of that were the people, the senior people in intelligence of the Obama administration, who I believe engaged in completely criminal activity that should be investigated. I regret to say that Jeff Sessions, as Attorney General, will never permit the type of in-depth criminal investigation that needs to happen.
I agree with you 100%. Joe DiGenova, you're going to stick around for just a moment because we're going to squeeze in a quick break. I have many more questions for you. The great attorney Joe DiGenova, who is in the book, The Russia Hoax. You can buy it on Tuesday. I'll be right back. This is Gregg Jarrett filling in for Sean Hannity on The Sean Hannity Show. Back now with The Sean Hannity Show. I'm Gregg Jarrett filling in for Sean Hannity. You can follow me on Twitter, Gregg Jarrett, at Gregg Jarrett. And, by the way, 2 G's on the end of Gregg. Not to be confused with that other Gregg Jarrett. I've been talking with Joe DiGenova, a terrific lawyer in Washington, D.C., former U.S. attorney, former independent counsel. He was interviewed for my book. He is quoted in it. The name of the book is The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. Available in bookstores beginning on Tuesday, or you can order it, barnesandnoble.com. But, Joe, one of the arguments I make, this is in, I believe, Chapter 6, is that, collusion is not a crime in a political campaign. Collusion's a crime in antitrust law and so forth. Now, if you pay a foreign national for information in a political campaign, that would be a crime, and isn't that what Hillary Clinton and Democrats did?
Well, Greg, the answer to that is, of course, yes. What they did was definitely pay a foreign national for information in a campaign. And the question is whether or not that type of activity is covered by federal criminal law and should be investigated. But here's the problem with all of this. And the problem with the Mueller investigation, which was created by Rod Rosenstein because he was so furious about the fact that he thought the President of the United States had embarrassed him by telling Lester Holt that he would have fired James Comey no matter what Rod Rosenstein had recommended. Rosenstein is just a coward. And the problem that exists now is, if it is true that Bob Mueller has immunized Tony Podesta as part of the prosecution of Paul Manafort, we will have reached a point in this ridiculous Mueller investigation of complete perfidy, complete untrustworthiness. Just put your head on straight for a second and think about what that means. That means that every Democrat who's been investigated by the Comey Justice Department, Comey FBI, has gotten either immunity or a no prosecution decision. In the middle of the Manafort case, they're going to immunize Tony Podesta, who committed many of the same crimes that Manafort is alleged to have done. It is so mind-boggling and shocking that I'm apoplectic about it.
Joe DiGenova, many thanks. Let's do it again sometime soon. One of the great attorneys in America, talking about my book, The Russia Hoax, which comes out on Tuesday.